Deathbound is a heavily Dark Souls-inspired game by a small studio. It involves a group of characters that have perished and must work together to get to the bottom of a mysterious disaster. It mixes modern locations and fantasy-style combat. It is a fairly short game that will appeal to most people looking for a rough-around-the-edges Souls-like. The story of Deathbound is told mostly through character-based cutscenes where some characters who have died and are bound together chat. The game is meant to be quite brutal, grimdark with mass murder, torture, executions by fire of innocence, religious zealotry, scientific bioengineering which turns prisoners of war into horrific monsters. All the characters are extreme characters and they are so over the top they feel like parodies of themselves. And the voice actors all overact as well. The game is far more combat focused than anything else and suffers from it. Part of this may come from the expectation that these games start with somewhat clunky combat due to lacking in stats, but leveling causes a smoother experience. This game feels like it gets worse the longer it is played. There is stuttering, especially in combat with bosses where they are using combos, and many times there were short lag spikes during attacks that threw off dodge timing. Even when the game runs smoothly though, the combat itself feels unresponsive and sluggish for almost everything. Heat, the mage's mana bar, recharges very slowly and is part of all actions, even basic attacks. The game has status effect buildup that takes a considerable amount of time to drop. Attacks and abilities often lack weight, having poor or no reaction to hitting foes at times. In reverse, many things do not trigger a response when they hit your character. For example, there are flame traps that deal excessive damage that you can dodge through, but there's limited visual response to failing or succeeding. Many times, the only way you will know that you are taking damage is if you are looking at the health bar. The UI is somehow worse. Its main innovation is switching between 4 characters on the fly. This is a pretty cool thought, allowing you to basically equip 4 different classes, such as having a mage, tank, rogue, and heavy melee damage dealer. You can somewhat quick swap during an attack or damage, but it is clunky to use in any situation. Visually, the UI is bad at immediate feedback. For one, there are 4 health bars. The health bars, when taking damage, are poorly indicating of what is happening. There are delays on important things like showing where your health is, and your stamina overlays your health. One of the biggest flaws is the link of stamina to health. Characters have very low health bars, and while you have 4 of them, it is important to keep in mind if even one dies, all die. When you take damage, your stamina reduces with it. This means any fight that starts to get a bit spicy cuts off your ability to make a comeback. If you're one hit from death, your max stamina only allows 1 dodge or weapon swing. The dodge is also sluggish, more of a sidestep or backstep. Even if used before an enemy swing, they will often hit with the follow-up since it doesn't create much distance. Or in some cases, for a long enemy swing, you can dodge the first half of it, but still be hit by the latter part. Enemy AI is lackluster. Most will simply hone in on your character, you barely have customization, basically you have an ability tree that doesn't let you specify beyond picking what to enhance first. You have no armor or weapons, 2 rings and an artifact, which have bonuses that often will only apply to 1 or 2 characters. Basically, you're stuck playing the same way all game. Every character has effectively 4 abilities with the trigger buttons. For example, the tank has parry, block, heavy strike, light strike. The mage has a blast attack, a buff, a poison pool, and a poison bolt. There's a lot of environmental clutter as well. Traps, aside from poor visual cues, are a decent threat. Obstacles, though, are the worst part about this game. Dark Souls has Blighttown ledges. This game has chairs. Chairs are absolutely deadly in this game, along with other things like small torches, rocks, clutter. These things are sometimes impassable, and sometimes cannot be broken by dodging, but sometimes they can. A dodge path being blocked off by something barely noticeable is far too common. Bosses are pretty simple, but there's not much option to change up your playstyle. If you ever do get stuck, and your healing potion doesn't so much heal as steal life from your companions, if just one dies, it's back to the rest point. Combat is simple to understand. You do not have to spend time farming, thinking about a build, dealing with story or anything else. There are basically no side quests, and highly linear levels that have maze-like corridors, which include vertical travel, and generally lack differentiating features, making them unnecessarily annoying to traverse. This all sounds so harsh, but at no point did any of the flaws with the game feel like a deal breaker. Most are small to moderate nuisances. However, there are a constant flow of them, and the charm of the game faced a death by 1,000 cuts, causing my favorable opinion of the early game to dwindle in the later half. At about 10 hours, Deathbound is fine. If you really like the genre, but if you are new or want something polished, this will likely sour your opinion of Souls-likes. Deathbound earns a 6 out of 10.